Breaking news: the Pittsburgh Steelers have shaken up their roster in a way no one saw coming. After the final preseason battle against the Carolina Panthers, the front office made a bold move that's sending shockwaves through Steelers Nation. Major cuts, tough decisions, and some unexpected names on the list. What does this mean for the team's future? Let's break it all down. Before we dive into the shocking details, a quick reminder: before listening to the latest news, subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss any breaking Steelers updates. Now let's move on to the big news. The Steelers have officially started trimming their roster down to the required 53-man limit for the regular season. And they wasted no time making some tough calls. After the preseason finale against the Panthers, 11 players were released today. Here are the names Steelers Nation needs to know. Jake McQuaid, a long snapper. Kenny Willis, edge rusher. Cam Alexander, defensive back. Quindell Johnson, defensive back. Kyler McMichael, defensive back. Mikey Victor, defensive back. Julian Pearl, offensive tackle. Doug Nestor, offensive lineman. Logan Woodside, quarterback. Evan Hull, running back. Kevin Fulch, tight end. These were the first wave of cuts, likely the easiest decisions for the front office. But make no mistake, more tough moves are coming. Some players are still fighting for a spot, and the coaches will need extra time to decide on those final roster spots. What do you think about these cuts? Were there any surprises for you? Let us know in the comments, because this is just the beginning of what's shaping up to be a dramatic week for the Steelers. Out of all the names cut, one move stands out the most: a long snapper, Jake McQuaid. What makes this surprising is that the Steelers just signed him a few days ago. The only reason he was brought in was because Christian Kuntz, the team's regular long snapper, got hurt during the second preseason game. Now here's the tricky part. Kuntz's status for Week 1 is still uncertain. With McQuaid gone, the Steelers currently don't have a healthy long snapper on the roster. That means one of two things has to happen soon: either Kuntz heals up fast, or the team will need to sign someone else, maybe even try an emergency replacement from within the roster. As for the other cuts, a few moves were more predictable. Quarterback Logan Woodside was brought in as a temporary option after Will Howard went down in camp with an injury. Unfortunately, Woodside never managed to separate himself or show anything special in the preseason games. When you're fighting for a fourth QB spot, you need to make an immediate impact, and he just didn't. Could the Steelers bring him back on the practice squad? Possibly. Teams often like to keep an extra quarterback around for emergencies, and Woodside could still fit that role if needed. Defensive back Cam Alexander was another quick turnaround. He was signed after being released by the Rams earlier in the week, but the Steelers decided to move on from him as well. Several of these players faced an uphill battle from the start. Cam Alexander, for example, was brought in late in the preseason simply to add depth at defensive back. When you join a team that late, your margin for error is almost zero. He didn't have enough time to make an impression, and as expected, the Steelers moved on. The same goes for Kenny Willis, added to provide extra help along the defensive front for the final preseason stretch. He never got the benefit of a full training camp, and without standout plays, his chances were slim. Julian Pearl, an offensive lineman signed just ahead of the Panthers game, was in a similar spot. The Steelers already have a solid group of starters and backups on the offensive line, so Pearl's release wasn't a surprise either. As for the skill positions, running back Evan Hull couldn't quite make his mark. With Trey Sermon and Lou Nichols performing better, Hull simply got squeezed out of the competition. Could the team still bring him back on the practice squad? It's possible, but far from guaranteed. One interesting note is at safety. Sebastian Castro appears to have edged out Quindell Johnson. Both were likely battling for a similar depth role, but Johnson being included in this first wave of cuts might hint that the Steelers prefer Castro moving forward. One thing fans know about this Steelers roster is that versatility matters. Players who can shift into multiple roles, like safety Sebastian Castro, often catch Mike Tomlin's eye. That's part of why Castro appears to have an edge over Quindell Johnson, who was cut in the first wave. His ability to potentially slide into a linebacker-type role makes him valuable as the team continues its evaluations. Not everyone had that advantage. Kyler McMichael struggled throughout training camp and never found his rhythm in the preseason either, making his release unsurprising. Mikey Victor faced similar odds. Signed late in the process, he didn't get the full offseason workload that other players benefited from, so he was more of a camp body for depth and is now off the roster as well. After this round of moves, the Steelers are sitting at 80 players. By league rules, they have to be down to 53 by Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That means 27 more roster spots must be resolved. But not all of those decisions will be straight cuts. Some players are likely headed to injured reserve, which frees up spots without completely parting ways. For example, if Will Howard lands on injured reserve, the team could keep Skylar Thompson as one of its quarterbacks without making an extra cut. Pittsburgh usually carries 3 quarterbacks on the active roster, so how they handle the Howard-Thompson situation will be something to watch closely. It's important to remember that the number of open roster spots doesn't mean all 27 players will simply be released. Some will likely head to injured reserve, which frees up space without cutting ties completely. And it's not just Pittsburgh making moves. Every NFL team is making cuts this week, and that creates opportunities. Every year, there are surprising names who hit the market, talented players who didn't quite fit their previous team, but could become difference makers somewhere else. The Steelers' front office will be watching closely, ready to swoop in if the right player becomes available. Of course, the same works the other way. Other teams may look at Pittsburgh's release players and see value, a tough competitor who's already battled in the AFC North or someone who brings the right kind of grit. Over the next few days, expect a lot of movement across the league as players shift from one roster to another. For now, though, this is where the Steelers stand. The cuts so far are tough, especially since many of these guys have been around all offseason. Fans have followed their journeys from the moment they were signed to now. Even if some were late additions, there's still a connection. We've seen their effort, and their names have become part of the preseason story. One of the toughest parts of this time of year is the emotional side. These players aren't just names on a list. They've been grinding through camp, giving their all on the field, and connecting with fans who've watched their journey. Many people root for the underdogs, hoping they'll carve out a spot on the roster. And when some of those guys don't make it, it stings. Take Rock Taylor, for example. He was released last week, and plenty of Steelers fans were pulling for him. He looked sharp in camp, played well in the preseason, and some even thought he could develop into a hidden gem at wide receiver despite going undrafted. But the business side of the NFL doesn't always match up with fan sentiment. Sometimes more experienced players are kept, while hungry young guys have to look elsewhere for a shot. That's the reality. Roster cuts are brutal, and for many players, it means trying to catch on with another team or at least land on a practice squad. It's a tough day, and it's okay to feel disappointed when a favorite doesn't make it. Now the focus shifts to what comes next. More cuts are coming, and there will be tough choices ahead. Some surprises could still happen. Was there anyone released so far that you didn't expect? Or someone you believe still deserves a shot? Think about it, because the next few days will shape what this team looks like heading into the season.